The greatest risks facing global supply chains has shifted from the pandemic, yes, to Russia and Ukraine conflict and the geopolitical and economic uncertainties it has created. Now, global supply chains have been in a fragile state since the start of the pandemic, and the ongoing invasion by Ukraine by Russia has exacerbated the situation for companies in many industries, particularly those heavily reliant on energy resources. Given the peculiar situation of Nigeria's supply chain sector, the scarcity of containers is said to elevate shipping costs as transportation and logistics, which are key to a wide range of industries from processed foods to advanced industrial manufacturing, will be largely affected. Well, I introduced him earlier. He's joining us via Zoom from the United Kingdom. He's an expert in supply chain management, Dr. Olushola Kolawole. Good afternoon, Dr. Kolawole. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tolulope. Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon. The way it looks like, it's so unclear how long this would last with what we have on ground, moving from the effects of the pandemic to moving into the Russia and Ukraine crisis. Now, you are a professional in this space. Take us through what this means for the global space.
Yeah, thank you so much once again for having me in Tolulope. I think about a few weeks ago, I was here to also discuss the impact of pandemic on supply chain management and supply chain activities. So we never knew that we were going to have another issue that will also affect the supply chain. So we're thinking, in fact, I could remember I said it vividly, that by April this year, we should be seeing some positive effect of COVID-19 on supply chain. However, we now have another issue that is really affecting our supply chain, which is the Ukraine war, or the invading of Ukraine by Russia. And this is affecting, it has affected, and it will still affect our supply chain. And it's going to affect a lot of things. It's going to affect a lot of sectors. The oil and gas supply chain is affected already. The educational sector is affected already. And we also have the agro commodity, which is also affected. And I believe that this will also have a negative effect on the Nigeria economy. It's going to affect the way we carry out our business because we depend mostly on the importation of most of these commodities. And that is what I can say for now, that the supply chain effect of Russia or of Russia invading Ukraine is going to be with us for a while. If not for more than 6 months, even after the war, it can be here for years. So that is what we're having at the moment, which I believe we know what we can do about it.
The price of wheat here is something that we have to contend with. Yes, you've talked about oil and gas, which at the moment crude is somewhere above $120 per barrel, which is supposed to be good news, but not really good news for us in Nigeria. Now, take us in specifics. Let us understand how this disruption will affect movement of all of this. Because at the moment, there's a war in that country, and it's a large producer of some of this produce I just mentioned. How is this going to pan out? Does it mean that we have to opt for other kind of products, or do we have to start to institute new ways of imports?
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Tolulope. If we look at the contribution of Russia as a country to the global GDP, they just have 2%, and that of Ukraine is about 0.14% contribution to the global GDP. And you might be thinking that, oh, this one does not mean anything. It does suggest that it will not affect anything. But I want to say no. We are going to feel the effect of the war that is ongoing in some specific sectors. And I want to start by naming them. We are going to have the oil and gas, which you just mentioned. The oil and gas sector could have been a very positive effect for Nigeria, assuming we have our refinery working, a good infrastructure in place. But no. But we depend on importing most of our oil, our refined oil from Russia, from other parts of the world. And this is number one effect. And that is why you can see that we have some rising costs of rising price of some of this commodity. So we might want to work on our infrastructure, that is for the oil and gas. And now let's come back to the agro-commodity, which is the manufacturing side. The agro-commodity, we are aware that Russia and Ukraine, they are the third largest producer of wheat. It does suggest that we might be experiencing in the near future some rising price in a flour commodity, for example, bread, and also wheat, the other indirect product that is being used by wheat to make. So we are going to see some commodity that will be of rise, some price of commodities that will be of rise because of this, because the suppliers are no longer accessible. We have destruction in our shipping. The shipping system is being disrupted. Even the cargo system is being disrupted at the moment. So that will be a kind of, how do I put it, a kind of drawback in the supply of this commodity. And what we can do at this moment is to work on our domestic suppliers, is to ensure that we have adequate infrastructure that will be able to encourage the manufacturing industry to ensure that they have the in-source commodity of some of this raw material that we're talking about. We can empower the farmer, for example, to ensure that they go to the farm and make some production of this. We can as well look at alternative countries rather than depending on Russia, depending on Ukraine, for example. We can look at alternative countries where some of these products can as well be sold. If that is not done, in the near future, very soon, we are going to see scarcity of some of these products because Russia and Ukraine are the major player in this. And that is for the agro, which is for the food supply chain. We can as well talk about the iron ore. They are one of the largest. In fact, there is a specific iron that is being made by Russia, and they use it for the airspace. Without this iron ore, for example, from Russia, airspace might not work effective. And now there is a kind of restriction, there is a kind of sanction. So if the inventory that is already available for some of this company, if they finish, how will they get it? How will they do it? So that is why they need to start thinking, what are the alternative way of sourcing for some of these products? And if care is not taken, we are going to be having scarcity of this thing, which I've said before, and we are going to have the rise in increase of some of this, the price of some of this commodity. So therefore, government need to come in now. Manufacturing industry need to come in. Suppliers need to come in and see a way they can make use of this opportunity by getting involved in the production of some of these raw materials in order for us to get more of this product.
Let me now ask that at times like this, where people say countries need to take advantage of what they have to get what they want. We know we have abundance of gas in this part of the world, both proven and unproven gas. Is it an opportunity, some even advise particularly that the Trans-Sahara gas pipeline should be completed. Maybe we could begin exporting gas. But do you think we can take advantage of all of these opportunities, Dr. Olushola?
Yes, Tolulokwe. I think this is an opportunity for us, especially the developing country, including Africa, to make best use of this opportunity. I was discussing with a friend early this morning, and I was saying that, people have been an opportunity for Nigeria, for example, to work on our infrastructure, to work on our gas, to work to reduce our import, for example, to reduce our import of some of this commodity and work on our infrastructure. So I think for the sub-Saharan Africa, the government can come together and make use of this opportunity and work on this infrastructure, the gas pipeline that you have just mentioned. They can work on it because I won't lie to you, the US, the Europe, Russia is supplying about 40% of gas and oil for EU. And Germany, for example, is depending on Russia for 65% of their energy. So you can imagine. And this, the European Union, the Germany, and so on, and other countries, they will also be looking for alternative from other countries as well. And I think Nigeria can be considered, sub-Saharan Africa can be considered to be an alternative area where they can source these raw materials. But if we don't put all this infrastructure in place, we're going to have issue in this place. And we may not make best use of this opportunity that has been given to us by this war that is ongoing. So I want to suggest that Sub-Saharan Africa, the head of state, those who are in authority should come together and repair some of this infrastructure so that they can function well. Then we can be at the advantageous stage. We can supply the Europe. We can supply other part of the country. Some of this commodity that may be scarce as a result of the Ukraine war that is ongoing. So that is my position at the moment. The government needs to come together and work on some of this, our infrastructure.
I think there's also supply of fertilizer here from one of the countries, talking about fertilizer exports. Now, I'm thinking about how this could affect Nigeria's agricultural sector. You know, there's a lot of focus on agriculture at this time. And if we don't get fertilizer, which I think the likes of Dangote are now producing, but I know it's not up to the quantity that we'll need for production. But will all of this affect us too in one way or the other? Let's look at the agro space now.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's going to affect us. Like I've mentioned before, Russia and Ukraine, they are one of the largest producers of corn, for example, of wheat flour, for example, and fertilizer, for example. And now, if fertilizer, if they are not available, how do you expect the farmer to work effectively to produce some of these raw materials for us? So I think it's going to have a negative impact on our agro commodity, and it's going to have a negative impact even on the revenue generation by some of these farmers. So therefore, I think more producers of some of these commodities should be encouraged by the government. They can give out loan, for example. They can empower them, for example, to make sure that they are also involved in the production of some of these commodities. If we don't do that, if the government did not do that, it's going to affect us negatively. We might not feel the effect now, but I can assure you that in the next 6 months, even in the next 1 year, we might feel the effect of the current war in Ukraine on our agricultural product if government refuse to get involved in them. So they can empower the farmer. They can give them money to get involved in the production of this. They can even involve in the manufacturing. The last section you just had was about the manufacturer association. So they can work with them, collaborate with them, and see to find a lasting solution to see how we too can benefit from this war by getting involved in the production of some of these raw materials.
I also think it is time to boost local production here now, one way or the other. Let's look at this, because it's another time to, you know, make Nigeria, buy Nigeria, and all of that. But like an example, let me ask you this: the wheat being imported now from Ukraine or from Russia. We bring it in for bread production, and they're saying that wheat being produced in Nigeria doesn't have the same taste as what we get from that abroad. So don't you think that as even Nigerians, we need to reorientate, re-educate, and understand that we must stand for our country?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think it's very important at this stage and at this time of the year that our government also needs to work on the orientating our citizens. Orientation is a key issue here, because I'm aware even ordinary hair, we sometimes get it from other countries. We shouldn't even encourage such a thing. And government can do a lot of things by imposing adding more tax on some of these commodities, especially those who are coming from abroad. And if we know that we can produce them, why don't we encourage people to buy some of these products? If we encourage them to buy it by imposing more taxes on some of these products that we think they are getting from abroad, and why we have them in our own country. So, for example, China, for example, they patronize their own commodity. Their in-country commodity are being patronized by them. It is very rare. A lot of countries even depend on China to bring some of those products to them. So I think our government, that is where government also come in, and that is where orientation, we have agency that has to do with orientating our citizens. They can come up with a lot of activity just to advise and to orientate our citizens on the need for them to encourage the domestic product that we have in our country. So I think it's also go back to the government. to work on modality, to develop strategy, to orientate, to give a kind of advice to our citizens to ensure that we patronize our in-country commodity in order to reduce our over-dependence on some of these products from abroad.
So finally, before I let you go, we've had projections, like I spoke to the DG of MAN earlier today, and also, projections for the manufacturing space, but now projections for that's talking about the value chain now and all of these disruptions that we are having. Would you say that we could stay with some of the projections we've had before now? Like you said, towards the end of this year, there could be a little bit of stability in the logistics space and all of that. But with this reality that we face staring us in the eyes, and it's we can't even do anything, we are not insulated from all of the negatives. What's your projection for the logistics space?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that question. I think at this moment, it will be very difficult to give a kind of projection on what is going on at the moment. Because why? Because we don't even know when the war is going to end, because the war continues every day. So we are not sure when the war will end. I could remember in one of my discussions with you, I told you that before the end of this year, based on pandemic, based on my own perspective on pandemic, that we're going to have some positive side of our supply chain. But at the moment, I won't lie to you, it will be wrong of me to come here and tell you that towards the end of the year, we are going to have some positive effect of this and that on our supply chain. No, because we don't know when the war will end. We only know the beginning, but we don't know how it's going to end. And the more we have the war, the more our supply chain becomes vulnerable. The more we affect the transportation sector, which I just mentioned that we have issue with transporting. Freight, for example, cargo, for example, they are affected. There is a lot of sanction that is being implemented back in Russia, for example. There's a lot of things that is also ongoing. So I cannot, for now, give a kind of projection on what will be the improvement. But let's see if they are able to negotiate and probably before the end of this month, if we have the end on the war, then we can see that in the next 3 months, in the next 4 months, in the next 6 months, our supply chain can improve. But if the war still continues, it will be very difficult to make a kind of projection on improvement on supply chain activities.
Indeed. We need to consider all of the global issues, and of course domestic issues are happening before we make projections and reprojections. Well, I must thank you so much. Interesting chat with you there, Dr. Olushola Kolawole, who's an expert in supply chain management. He joined us from the United Kingdom. Thank you so much, and do enjoy the rest of your day.